This team comp was designed with one purpose in mind. To annihilate annoying roof counts, about a year ago. Nowadays I use this team to deal with tanky freezable enemies ranging from doggos, snakes, scorpions, vultures, and these as well. The creation of this team comp was inspired by speedrunning Ayaka team comps in which you incorporate 3 supports, Mona, Bennett, and Kazuha, to buff and maximize the damage of Ayaka's elemental burst. This allowed for very quick clear times for specific chambers within Spiral Abyss. However, not very practical for clearing the Spiral Abyss in general. The main issue with this particular team comp is that it's very dependent on one cycling, where you clear all the enemies within a single rotation, or in this case, Ayaka elemental burst. The Spiral Abyss is typically designed to have multiple waves of enemies that literally spawn on the other side of the chamber. Without the ability to magically teleport Ayaka elemental burst, we're left with a lot of downtime struggling to get enough energy for Ayaka's next elemental burst, similar to the struggles of getting enough energy to get out of bed. So the main issue boils down to not having enough energy recharge on Ayaka. One solution we can suggest is increasing the energy recharge of Ayaka, but since Ayaka is essentially the hyper carry of this team comp, reallocating stats such as crit and attack to ER can heavily decrease the amount of damage the team outputs. Instead, what we can do is incorporate Shenhe to the team comp, allowing us to generate enough cryo energy for Ayaka to use her elemental burst off cooldown, given that we need a little bit of energy recharge on Ayaka. Variations of this team typically have Shenhe replace Bennett, however I decided to replace Kazuha instead due to personal preferences of having Bennett for healing and having a unique interaction with Shenhe's icy quill stacks, which will be explained when I do the breakdown analysis of the rotation. Kazuha is still though an overall better option for this team. So we have Ayaka as our hyper carry, Mona as our freeze enabler, and damage bonus provider with our Stellaris Phantasma, Shenhe as our cryo damage buffer, and finally Bennett as our ultimate buffer and healer. For character builds they're pretty standard, Bennett with a high base attack weapon and noblesse, Mona with TTDS, and Tenacity of the Millith, Shenhe with her Favonius Lance and 2-piece Glad 2-piece Shimnawa, and Ayaka with Blackcliff Longsword and 4-piece Blizzard Share. These builds can be adjusted according to each individual player's inventory. Just note that you roughly want 200-250 ER on Bennett and Mona, and 170 ER on Shenhe, along with enough crit rate to proc Favonius Lance, and 120 ER on Ayaka. These are just estimates since energy recharge is heavily dependent on enemies you're facing, but when in doubt, put more Favonius weapons on everyone. Energy recharge is the most important aspect within any given team comp, as most characters are reliant on their elemental burst to provide significant damage increase or utility to the team. Now all there's left is to create and execute a rotation. So here's an example rotation that I've optimized to the best of my ability. Note that this rotation, like every other one, is just a mere guideline for ability order usage and character swapping, as it can be situational. Also within every rotation, make sure to dodge when necessary. We start off with a rotation with Ayaka's elemental sprint. Wait a minute, why is an ability that's no damage even mentioned within this rotation? Well, it turns out we could use the cryo application to set up for Bennett's elemental skill to melt. Though it may be a small optimization, we take every damage increase we can get. Next up we have Bennett's elemental burst followed by Shenhe's elemental skill and burst. Notice how we're able to melt with both Shenhe's elemental skill and burst with this rotation due to Bennett's elemental burst providing enough power application for this to occur. Not that this was intentional, of course. How am I supposed to keep track of these elemental gauges for abilities? 1 use, 2 use? What's next? F use? I mean, the main reason for such ordering is to maintain the uptime of Bennett's elemental burst and Shenhe's buffs for Ayaka's elemental burst. However, such outcomes are noteworthy to address. Moving along, we use Mona's elemental skill and burst to freeze and set up for Ayaka. Typically, though not necessary, I like to use Mona's sprint before using such abilities to apply an extra bit of Hydra application to freeze the enemies quicker, if freezable of course. Anyways, next we have Ayaka's sprint, this time to increase the cryo damage of Ayaka's abilities, followed by her elemental skill and burst. So with all this setup we've done so far, let's take a quick look at all the buffs Ayaka's elemental burst utilizes. Not all the potential buffs are listed here, such as constellations, but who even has 5-star constellations anyways? So while there are some missing, these are the main buffs to consider. So going back to the rotation, we swap back to Mona and sprint to reapply Hydra to keep the enemies frozen. Also to catch energy particles from Mona's elemental skill, which unlike most skills, occurs at the end of the skill's duration. Then we use Shenhe's elemental skill. The timing of the skill is crucial for multiple reasons. The first reason is so that Shenhe's elemental skill occurs during Bennett's elemental burst duration. This is so that not only can we buff Shenhe's icy quill stacks with Bennett's burst, but also with noblesse and tenacity of the Millith to give Shenhe extra attack. If we were to get delayed or get interrupted during the rotation before Shenhe's second elemental skill, these attack buffs will expire. Also, the second reason is to reapply the 15% elemental burst damage bonus from Shenhe's Ascension 4 passive that expires during Ayaka's elemental burst. Which begs the question on why Shenhe's buffs expire during Ayaka's elemental burst and how we can reapply icy quill stacks if the burst is considered a snapshot ability. This is because Shenhe's buffs are considered dynamic buffs. The hell is that supposed to mean? Basically, dynamic buffs bypass snapshot abilities and apply based on their own duration, range, or limits. This interaction between dynamic buffs and snapshot abilities explains why Shenhe is able to and should use her elemental skill mid Ayaka elemental burst. Anyways, back to the rotation. After Shenhe's elemental skill, immediately swap to Ayaka to energy funnel cryo particles for her. You don't need to worry about staying on field for Shenhe's icy quill stacks to be buffed by Bennett's elemental burst, since Ayaka's elemental burst can consume Shenhe's stacks instantly. And if you're still worried about switching off of Shenhe's too quickly, I'll let you on a little secret mechanic about Bennett's elemental burst. The attack percentage bonus that you gain off of his elemental burst actually lingers for 2 seconds when your active character within the field either swaps out or moves outside of the field. Therefore, you can actually energy funnel to Ayaka without worrying about any damage loss. Next, we use Ayaka's sprint to infuse her normal attacks with cryo to charge attack, and then we swap back to Bennett to use his elemental skill. Theoretically, it looks as if we can repeat the rotation from here, however the cooldowns of Shenhe and Ayaka won't allow us to do so. So in the meantime, we use Ayaka's charge attack, elemental skill, and charge attack again. The last charge attack being used to wait for the cryo particles to reach Ayaka to charge her elemental burst. Then we finally repeat the rotation. The rotation is a little complicated, so here's the rotation order for all those who want to try this out. This team comp is rather niche in its own usage, in which it mainly focuses on enemies that are typically already grouped, since you don't have any other grouping capabilities. However, this can be solved by editing the team comp to put in a Kazuha or something like that. Though this team comp mainly focuses on dealing with freezable enemies, it can be used to take down some bosses without invulnerability or teleportation, though there aren't many unfortunately. The main downside to this team comp comes down to the entire rotation being overkill for a lot of enemies that are not tanky, so you end up wasting more time setting up for Ayaka's elemental burst if anything, along with the fact that you have no other significant damage options to utilize besides Ayaka's charge attacks, I guess. But besides that, this team excels at annihilating most enemies. It can even take down this Geo Serpent Knight that is currently in Spiral Abyss 3.5, which has like around 440,000 HP. So not too bad. Let's do a few meme showcases to demonstrate the power of this team comp, starting with challenging one of the most easiest bosses, the Cryo Regis Find, without breaking score. In which case it has 170% cryo resistance, which with the Mistsplitter and Calamity Coil equipped, I can barely one-cycle the boss. Though I can't even one-cycle the Electro Regis Find because it has like about 200% more cryo resistance than the Cryo Regis Find. Which, why you might ask, I don't know. Trying to do this is like trying to kill a cryo slime with Ayaka, or trying to use this team comp to kill the Waynut during the 3.5 Spiral Abyss and 3-starring it. Don't try this at home. There are definitely better team comps to beat this boss, along with other variations of this team comp that have Kazuha in it. I had to beat the boss in 2 phases while other teams could do it in 1, along with a fast first half clear of the chamber. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this rotation guide. If you like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your night.